There's a particular kind of silence that falls over a town when the mill closes. You've heard it described. Maybe you've lived it. It's not just an absence of sound. It's the absence of purpose, of rhythm, of something to wake up for. That silence has echoed through American history, when the textile mills moved south, when the steel plants shuttered, when the factories packed up and crossed the Pacific. Every generation was told, adapt, learn a new skill, get a better degree, move up the ladder. And millions of Americans did exactly that. They went to college, they took out loans, they learned to code, to design, to write, to analyze. They built careers in the knowledge economy, the part of the economy they were promised that machines could never touch. Those careers had names like content writer, customer service representative, paralegal, financial analyst, marketing manager, junior software developer, radiologist, journalist, white collar, safe, future-proof. That's what they were told. In November 2022, a company called OpenAI released a chatbot. It was called ChatGPT. Within 5 days, it had 1 million users. Within 2 months, 100 million. It wasn't just a chatbot. It wasn't just a toy. It was a preview, a glimpse of something that economists, technologists, and policymakers had theorized about for decades. The moment artificial intelligence stopped being a tool that assisted human work and became something that could replace it. This is the story of that moment, of what it means for the 44% of US workers whose jobs economists now classify as highly exposed to automation, of the companies already making the swap, quietly, without press releases, without fanfare, of the workers already feeling it, the freelancers who can't find contracts, the recent graduates who can't find jobs, the mid-career professionals who suddenly can't explain why their skills feel obsolete, and of the deeper question that nobody in power seems willing to answer. If the machines do the work, what do the people do? Let's talk about what's already happened. Not theory, not prediction. What has already happened? In 2023, Sports Illustrated, one of the most iconic magazines in American history, was caught publishing AI-generated articles under fake bylines. Fictional authors with stock photo headshots. The writers who'd built careers there? Gone. BuzzFeed's news division shuttered. CNET quietly published dozens of AI-written finance articles with errors throughout, then issued corrections. The Washington Post cut jobs. Vice declared bankruptcy. Gannett, the largest newspaper chain in America, announced AI would take over certain reporting tasks. Journalism, one of the most essentially human professions, built on curiosity, skepticism, and moral courage, is being automated. Not entirely, not overnight, but enough to matter, enough to eliminate jobs, enough to change what it means to be a reporter in America. Customer service has already crossed the threshold. IBM announced it would pause hiring for roughly 7,800 roles it expects AI to replace, specifically back office and human resources functions. Klarna, the Swedish fintech company operating heavily in the US, replaced 700 customer service workers with an AI system. The company said the AI handles the equivalent of 700 full-time employees and is doing it, in their words, better. The average American customer service representative earns around $36,000 a year. They have mortgages, they have children, they have car payments and student loans and parents they're taking care of. And they were told their jobs were safe because, unlike factory work, their jobs required empathy, conversation, a human touch. Turns out, you can simulate a human touch. Then there's the legal sector. A 2023 Goldman Sachs report estimated that as many as 44% of legal work tasks could be automated by AI. Document review, contract analysis, legal research, due diligence. These are the tasks that junior lawyers and paralegals spend most of their working hours performing. One law firm in the UK replaced all of its paralegals with a single AI system. The partners kept their jobs. The paralegals did not. This is the pattern that's emerging. AI doesn't take the top of the ladder. Not yet. It takes the rungs. The entry-level positions that used to let young people prove themselves. The mid-level roles that used to let experienced workers find stability. The jobs that used to be the path to something better. And when you remove the rungs from a ladder, crisis different from every other job displacement moment you make in American history. Inevitable. It's nearly invisible in the official numbers. The unemployment rate, as of 2024, hovered around 4%. By traditional measures, that's healthy, near full employment. But traditional measures were built for a traditional economy. The gig economy, the freelance economy, the creator economy. These millions of American workers don't show up in unemployment claims when their income drops, because they were never employed in the traditional sense. They were contractors, consultants, independent creators. When their work dries up, and it is drying up across content writing, graphic design, voice acting, translation, and coding, they don't file for unemployment. They just make less money and tell themselves it's temporary. On freelance platforms like Upwork and Fiverr, rates for certain categories have collapsed. Content writing, down. Basic logo design, down. Simple coding tasks, down. A 2023 study found that job postings in writing, coding, and image generation fields on these platforms dropped by as much as 30% in the months after ChatGPT's release. 30%. Not because the work wasn't needed, but because the work could now be done by something that doesn't need health insurance. And then there are the young people. The class of 2023, the class of 2024. The students who did everything right. They studied computer science, communications, finance, marketing. They built portfolios. They took internships. They networked. They graduated into a job market that was already beginning to contract around them. Entry-level tech jobs dropped significantly in 2023 and 2024. Junior developer roles, historically the gateway into the industry, began disappearing as companies discovered that AI coding assistants could handle the work those junior developers used to do. One recent computer science graduate described it this way to a reporter. "I feel like I trained for a race, and when I showed up at the starting line, they told me the race was cancelled, but no one told me what race to train for next." These are the people that the unemployment rate doesn't see. The underemployed, the discouraged, the ones working 2 part-time jobs that don't use any of their skills while telling their families they're still looking. The ones for whom the American promise, work hard, build something, be rewarded, is starting to feel like a story someone told them a long time ago, before everything changed. On the other side of this story, there are companies, and for many of them, this is not a crisis. This is a gift. Let's be honest about the math. A human customer service representative costs somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000 a year in salary, plus benefits, training, management overhead, sick days, and turnover costs. An AI system that can handle the same volume of interactions costs a fraction of that, and it doesn't take breaks. For publicly traded companies with shareholders to satisfy every quarter, that math is not even a close call, and so the replacements are happening, quarter by quarter, quietly, not always announced as layoffs. Sometimes they're called restructurings, efficiency initiatives, investments in automation. Sometimes they happen through attrition. Companies simply stop hiring for the roles that AI is beginning to cover. The jobs don't disappear in a single dramatic announcement. They just stop being posted, and nobody outside the company really notices until the cumulative effect is impossible to ignore. Amazon has been doing this with physical labor for years. Robots in the warehouses, automated checkout, drone delivery pilots. Now that same logic is moving into the knowledge economy, into the office buildings, the newsrooms, the law firms, the banks, the hospitals. Radiology is facing it. Studies have shown AI can detect certain cancers in medical imaging with accuracy that rivals and sometimes exceeds experienced radiologists. Not everywhere, not for everything, but enough to raise a question. How many radiologists does a hospital actually need if AI handles the initial screening? Financial analysis, accounting, tax preparation, investment research. These are industries built on human expertise, on the idea that trained minds with years of education and experience could process complex information and make sound judgments. AI doesn't have years of experience, but it has been trained on the entire recorded output of human expertise, and in many tasks, that turns out to be enough. The companies will tell you, and they're not entirely wrong, that technology has always disrupted W's. Every politician, every economist, every tech CEO who is asked about this says some version of the same thing. We need to invest in retraining and reskilling. And they're not wrong that training matters, but there's something that phrase consistently leaves out. Retraining works best for people with time, financial stability, and proximity to the skills being demanded. A 28-year-old with savings and no dependents can retrain, can pivot, can absorb uncertainty. A 54-year-old with a mortgage, 2 kids in college, and a spouse with medical bills, retraining means something very different. And the jobs that AI is not replacing, the ones that require physical presence, genuine human relationship, and manual dexterity, home health aides, electricians, plumbers, teachers, social workers, these are often jobs that pay less than the knowledge economy roles being eliminated, or jobs that have their own structural problems, their own shortages, their own reasons people are leaving them. The people who care for our sick and elderly are not replaceable by AI, and thank God for that. But the average home health aide in America earns just over $14 an hour. We have not, as a society, decided that work that cannot be automated is therefore work that deserves to be paid well. That is a choice, and it is a choice we're making, again, right now, in how we're responding to this moment. Congress has held hearings about AI. They've asked questions, they've made speeches, but the United States has no comprehensive federal AI policy, no mandatory disclosure requirements for when companies replace workers with automation, no fund for displaced workers comparable to what other developed nations have built, no agreement, even in principle, about what the social contract looks like in an economy where human cognitive labor is increasingly optional. The workers are starting to push back. The Writers Guild of America, in their 2023 strike, won provisions limiting how AI can be used to generate scripts, a historic first, workers negotiating the terms of automation in their own contracts. SAG-AFTRA fought and won protections against AI replicas of performers. Other industries are watching. Other unions are strategizing. But union membership in America is at historic lows, under 11%. The workers most vulnerable to this wave are often the least organized, the freelancers, the gig workers, the people who never had a union to protect them in the first place. Her name doesn't matter for this story, but her situation does. 43 years old, 14 years as a technical writer for a mid-sized software company. 2 kids, a mortgage in the Midwest she and her husband stretched to afford. Her company didn't fire her. They offered her something worse. They told her she could keep her job at the same salary, but her new role would be to edit and fact-check content generated by an AI system. The job she'd spent 14 years mastering, researching, structuring, crafting documentation, would now be done by a machine. Her job would be to clean up after it. She told the reporter who interviewed her, "I keep asking myself, what do they actually need me for anymore? And I don't have an answer." There are 2 futures being built right now, simultaneously in America, and the one we end up in depends on choices we are or are not making. In the first future, the productivity gains from AI are captured almost entirely by the companies that own the technology and the people who built it. The economy grows in aggregate, GDP rises, markets climb, and a relatively small number of people become extraordinarily wealthy, while a very large number of people find that their skills are no longer worth much, their savings are insufficient, and the social safety net that was supposed to catch them has holes big enough to fall through. This is not a dystopian fantasy. This is a plausible extrapolation of current trends. In the second future, the gains from AI are broadly shared, not because companies chose to share them out of generosity, because citizens, workers, and governments demanded it and built systems to make it happen. This would require things we haven't done yet: tax structures that treat automated labor differently, investment in public education, and workforce development that matches the scale of what's happening. Honest, adult conversations about the role of the social safety net in a post-scarcity economy. Maybe, and this is deeply contested, some form of universal basic income, or a wealth fund seeded by the productivity gains from automation. None of this is easy. None of it is politically simple. But all of it has precedent. Other countries have done pieces of it. The question is whether America has the political will. Here's what we know from every previous era of technological disruption. The technology itself is not the story. The technology is just the force, the neutral energy. The story is always about what human beings choose to do with it. The printing press could have been, and for a while was, a tool of propaganda and control. It became the engine of the Reformation, the Enlightenment, and eventually democracy. The Industrial Revolution produced child labor and 16-hour days, and then, through strikes and legislation and decades of organizing, it produced the 8-hour workday and the middle class. The Internet created monopolies and disinformation, and also connected billions of people and enabled new forms of human expression we couldn't have imagined before. AI will not write its own ending. We will. The workers being displaced right now are not abstractions. They are parents who coach Little League and serve on school boards. They are first-generation college graduates whose parents sacrificed everything for them to have a shot. They are veterans who came home and built second careers. They are immigrants who learned a language and a craft and built something real. What happens to them is not a footnote to the AI story. It is the AI story. And the question of whether America rises to this moment, or repeats the mistakes it made every other time the economy transformed faster than the people inside it could adapt, that question does not have a predetermined answer. It has only the choices we make, starting now. If this documentary raised questions for you about your own job, your industry, your community, those questions are worth sitting with, and then worth acting on. The workers in this story didn't make the decisions that disrupted their lives, but we are all, every voter, every consumer, every citizen, making the decisions about what comes next.